everyone, just as a little warning before the video, I will be discussing some sensitive topics and also my own experience very briefly. If you are easily triggered or become distressed when talking about sensitive topics or kind of issues to do with mental health, then I would suggest you do yourself a favour and maybe not watch this video. I've made a more specific Q&A on the collection, discussing all the practical questions like how much it is and where you can buy it, like I've done for my previous collections, and you can see that on my YouTube channel at HMR Writes or on my IGTV. I'll link everything below if you wanted to just skip to that and if this isn't the kind of information that you're looking for. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy the video if you do decide to watch it, and just take care, stay safe. I will leave some phone numbers below if you think that will be of help and you need someone to talk to. Hi everyone, I'm quite nervous to make this video. I've been deliberating about making this video for quite a while. All I will say is apologies for any other noise, apologies for the terrible makeshift backdrop that I didn't even iron. Yeah, apologies for any noise. This is the best I can do with the time I've got, and when I'm feeling slightly brave enough to do this, I thought it would be best to make a video in light of the release of my new collection Hyperreal and giving you a bit of background behind it, you know, why I'm releasing it, what it's actually about and how it relates to myself. If you see me looking in this direction, I have written some notes on my laptop just so I don't forget anything. Yeah, let's see if we can get through this. So the definition of hyperreal is, in its very basic form, it is the inability to distinguish reality from non-reality, fabricated reality. It's all about asking questions and deciding what's real and what's not, and for me this felt like a very natural progression from Another Day in Paradise. So just very briefly, Another Day in Paradise, I discussed the relationship between the self and something higher, or the possibility of something higher, and in Hyperreal I move on from that and try to decipher that relationship, try to decipher what's real and what's not. I've decided to go a bit nuts and choose to answer one of the biggest questions. I think for me, because hyperreality and this kind of constant assessment, constant questioning of what's actually going on, it just seemed like a very natural point in my poetry journey, and in where I am mentally, because it's led to me questioning that hyperreal for me, my collection, is about asking questions, and so many of my poems draw on memories, draw on experience, and how can I draw on memory and experience if I don't know how valid that is, or how real it is, or how much of it is exaggerated, how much is just my perception. The same event can be seen completely differently and recounted completely differently by two different people, depending on, you know, physical factors, age, gender, environment. Your perception of reality depends so much on so many different factors, and it will always change, and as infuriating as that is, it was something that I wanted to try and confront, and hyperreal is that. It is a confrontation. It is how much of this is real, how much, you know, what's going on, what's happening, how can I ground myself when I'm so unsure of myself, how can I find some kind of mooring. So I understand that so many of those questions can't be asked in 40 odd poems, and will never be asked in however many collections people write about that kind of thing, but it was just the natural progression from where I was and to where I am now in the time that it has taken between writing Another Day in Paradise and finishing Hyperreal. I also feel like this kind of ties in to one of the main things I wanted to talk about. I am often described as a mental health writer. I think it's even on my site because I like that description of me. But I feel I can't really be called a mental health writer anymore if I don't personally add to the conversation. Obviously I do talk about my own experiences in my collections. Obviously How Best to Stage a Breakdown is the first one that is centred around mental health, but lots of the times in my poems the I isn't me, or it's not consciously me. I'm still discussing experiences that I was never involved in, or are completely fictional, very loosely based on my experience or on something I've read. You know, I'm still very detached from those poems. Even if it may not come across like that to me, I'm very detached from them, and I think, you know, throughout the short time that I've been writing poetry, I've kind of realised that to write better poetry, to write better, you have to put more of yourself in your work, and I am still scared to do that, and I'm still scared to share bits of myself and parts of who I am, but I realise that my writing, my work, my relationship to other writers, poets, and just my relationship with others and with other people will get better if I do that. You know, How Best to Stage About Knowing was a very angry but exploratory collection, and I think I was trying to steer myself away from anger, because it is something that I struggle with, and it is something that I'm trying to be less angry. But I realised that, you know, you can't just choose to shy away from how you're feeling, and you can't, if you're trying to write about something that you don't feel, you're not going to write very well, or it's not going to be very true, or, you know, it's not going to hold a lot of depth. So I think with Hyperreal it was trying to learn how to sit with that anger, to confront it in a healthy way, and to turn it into something positive, or just to see it in a different way, rather than just completely shut it down and shun it and try and get rid of it, because that just makes it worse. So if you haven't been able to tell so far through my rambling, I'm confused. I'm at a point in my life, as well as in my writing and my poetry, but I'm really confused, and I feel like I'm trying to hold opposites together all the time. I'm trying to confront so many different things all together and try and sit with opposing feelings, and I'm unable to do this. It's driving me insane, and I'm trying to become more assured within myself, within my writing, through Hyperreal, and try and confront some of these binaries, and instead of trying to pick one or the other, trying to sit with them together and come to some kind of compromise, finding a balance, or some semblance of balance, and just learning to live with the discomfort. You know, I'm sure this goes against everything that you're ever told, and I wouldn't recommend that we all live uncomfortably, but for me, in a world where I can't have one or the other, I have to learn to accept both, and I'm doing so much of that in my personal life. I'm hoping that it filters into my work when people read it. I'm hoping that that is, you know, something that comes through in the collection. I'm just having to put more of myself in my work, and that seems really, really obvious, but it is something that I've had to explore and something I've had to work on, because I so naturally shy away from talking about myself and the things I have gone through, because I don't really like that attention. And yet it's, you know, in order to become a better writer, I need to share those bits of myself, and I need to work through that in, you know, whether that's therapy, whatever. I need to work through those issues, and for me, poetry is a way of doing that. I don't quite know how to get into this. Like, I've written it out. That's kind of, I went halfway. I've always wanted to be like the opposite of who I am. I've always felt very detached from myself, and obviously that kind of starts as wanting to be blonde instead of redhead, wanting to be dumb instead of smart, so I didn't have attention, and I wasn't a geek, and I wasn't a try-hard. I've always wanted to be the opposite of who I am, and I've never really liked myself, to say the least. You know, it's kind of, I think, you know, that started very young, and since then I have nurtured, I've nurtured those kind of surface level dislikes into deeply traumatic insecurities that I find quite difficult. So like wanting to be thin instead of fat, wanting to be invisible instead of getting attention, and wanting to be dead instead of alive. I can currently and honestly say that right now I want to be happy instead of sad, but I also want to be dead instead of alive. I want both. I live with suicidal thoughts every day. Since the first day I had them over 10 years ago now, except for 2 days. 2 days of my life since my first suicidal thought, I didn't think about dying, but it's been pretty constant. I'm trying not to label my experiences as I sort of, you know, compare what I have been through and what I've done, what I've said, I try not to label them as right or wrong or as better or worse. So I'm trying not to say to myself, oh, I'm better than I was 2 years ago or whatever. I'm trying to say that I'm different, because whilst in certain areas I've improved, in certain areas I really haven't. So I'm trying to say that I'm just in a different place. So whilst, outer appearances, probably not right now, but outer appearances, I often do appear better than I was, and I think things are less obvious than they were. It's different. I'm still struggling, I'm still finding things hard, and I'm still living with lots of contradictions, more than the ones I mentioned, but I'm trying to generalise and get through this, and those are the big ones that are that rule my life, that I let rule my life. Living with the kind of contradictions, it is tiring, it's confusing, it's completely self-inflicted, so I know that this is my fault, but I think it would require a lot of work to kind of get through them, and a lot of outsider help if I wanted to improve, which again is something I'm struggling with, because there's a lot of issues there with that. So I just want to get this out of the way. Devastatingly, lots of people have felt this way, and lots of people do feel this way and experience these kind of feelings. How many times can I say feelings? I am not at all trying to speak for everyone. I'm only trying to speak for myself. I can only speak for myself and my experiences. Mental health, mental illness is not a one-size-fits-all. Even if you've got two people with the same diagnosis and very similar circumstances, they're still completely different people with completely different experiences, and I cannot possibly speak for anybody else except for myself. So please do not take what I am saying as an absolute or as a blueprint for mental illness, because it's not. I can't possibly begin to discuss the many and varied intricacies involved with mental health and with mental health problems, and I think I almost find it harder because I experienced them and because I have had experiences of it. I think I almost find it harder to speak because I don't, my experience is just one person. It's not by any means a guide. I don't really know what it is, and I think that's why I haven't tried to add to the conversation, because I don't really think that what I'm saying is very meaningful or will help anybody else. I think I'm obviously doing it now with the poetry and that side of it, but in terms of on a deeper level, I've struggled because I don't know what me saying what I've said will do, and obviously there are people who have known me throughout my life or who have experienced different things and hear different rumours and different truths, and obviously their experience of me at one point in my life might be different from somebody who meets me now or different from someone who meets me in 5 years' time. Mental illness is such a personal illness. It's very hard to understand or even recognise, and you would think that I am more sympathetic because I've had my own experiences, but actually I still have a tendency to overlook people and overlook different signs, because you can't, a sign for one person would not be a sign for another. I can still overlook other people and what they're experiencing because I'm so wrapped up in myself, and I know I need to get better. You think I'd have a better radar or something, but I just don't, and that's definitely something that I'm trying to work on and I'm trying to get better at. Seeing it in other people kind of leads on to me saying that I feel like you won't hear that everything's going to be fine unless you want to hear it. So in this video I'm not trying to say that everything gets better and everything will be fine, because I genuinely don't know, and I'm sorry that I can't be that voice for you. But I do believe that if you want things to get better, you'll find a way and you'll figure it out. Even if it's a subconscious want, there'll be a way through, there'll be something. Just when I'm in the depths of my illness, I will refuse to hear anything that doesn't align with what I feel and what I think, and that is really, really selfish, and that is something I would need to work on if I wanted to improve. But it's it doesn't matter how many people tell me that everything is fine and that everything will get better. If I don't believe it and I don't see it, I'm not going to hear it, I'm not going to take that on board. It's really self-destructive, but I think it's actually more self-destructive for the people around me, and I'm learning that the more I'm experiencing different things and the more I'm going through life. I think it takes a resilience that I don't know, to be able to kind of pull through those selfish feelings and listen to the people around you, even to just consider what they're saying, because I find that really hard. I find it much easier to fuel my own thoughts and feelings because they're tried and tested, like it works, like I've said before. I know the consequences, I know what's going to happen, I know, you know, if I feel sad about this thing, I know what's going to happen in 12 hours, 24, 36, you know, I know what's going to happen. That routine is so much more comfortable than it possibly getting better, because I don't have enough of that. I don't have enough of that experience where it feels like it's the right thing. Being sad feels like the right thing. I sound insane. Back to writing, let's try and keep this mildly positive. I'm going to say that writing and poetry, it allows me to discuss thoughts and feelings I never believed I would. Even, you know, experiences that I've never actually been able to form the words, I've never spoken. It's all just existed in my head, I've been able to write down. Even if you haven't seen them and they haven't been published, I've still been able to write them, and I've still been able to get through that in a way. Like, I'm still working on it. There are still lots of experiences I need to sort out in my head, and lots of memories I need to work through, and lots of beliefs, but it's a starting point, and I never ever believed that could happen. It wasn't that long ago when that wasn't a possibility, you know. It wasn't, I'm talking 2 or 3 years here, like this is, yes, 2 or 3 years a lot can happen, but that's relatively a short time in a period of life for things to change and to be able to talk about, even if it's in my own way and it's not conventional, and it's probably not very healthy, because I think poetry is incredibly self-obsessive. I think, you know, it may not be the best way, but it is a way, and from a time when there was nothing, there was no way, to now have that is kind of crazy. I actually recently spoke about this with someone in my DMs, and I think writing is probably the only way I have been able to deal with these kind of things and talk about certain people, negative relationships, feelings, and I say deal very loosely, because obviously I still have a lot to work on. I very clearly have a lot to deal with, but I did put in that conversation, and I'm just reading it because I don't want to get it wrong, but I have had years of therapy, and writing poetry has done more for me than talking-based counselling and therapies has ever done. I mean, I've been very blessed to meet some incredible people. Been very blessed to have some people who have tried to help me, and I've shut them down. But I think figuring it out for myself has helped. It's not everything, and I'll never be able to achieve everything and get 100% fine. But I'm so glad that it has been an out. It's been a cathartic kind of out, you know. So I hope that other people have this out as well. I hope that writing and poetry can be an out for people. You know, it can be a way to confront yourself, because I think constant assessment is necessary. You know, it can be positive, it can be negative. Obviously I'd prefer it to be positive, and I'm not trying to give advice here. I'm not trying to say we should all be questioning ourselves in the way that I do, because I don't want anyone to experience what I experience or think the way I think. I don't, you know, I think that would be incredibly negative, and I would never want to wish my experiences upon anyone. I hope that poetry can be a way that we can deal with our emotions, because I think poetry has a kind of bad rep. It's a bit sissy, and it's a bit Insta poetry, you know, it's a bit wishy-washy, but it's not, like, you know what I mean, there's so many different ways that people use poetry and use writing, and I think it's just such a positive force of good. It can be a very destructive force, but I think ultimately it can be used very positively. I feel like I discovered the endless possibilities of literature and reading and writing when I went to college and I studied English. I will be the first to say that during GCSE and before, I absolutely hated English. I burned all my books after my GCSE English because I absolutely hated it. But something, with college, I think it was just a last-ditch attempt to try and do something. I thoroughly believed I would be dropping out by the Friday. I had plans to drop out by the Friday. I didn't think I would enjoy it, and didn't think I would want to do English. Like I say, I was pretty desperate and just clutching at straws, but I'm so glad that I did, because it really did change my life. What used to scare me, like the fact that there is no one right answer, actually became my strength, and listening to other people's interpretations, you know, collectively reading and discussing and building on each other's work. I feel like I'm looking a bit deranged right now because I'm just so passionate about it and I'm so excited by it, and it was so nice to be outside of my own head. Like, I was able in my head to piece together different parts from different people and to come up with my own interpretation and to build on readings and research. But it was so nice to be out of my head and to consider what other people were saying, because before then I was so wrapped up in myself, and I am still so wrapped up in myself. Like, I know I've got to work on that, but it's just so nice to be opened up to other possibilities, and I think I had to get that desperate, I had to get that low before I would consider it. And I'm not suggesting that is healthy, I'm not suggesting that everybody start doing that, but before that point I wasn't listening to anybody else, and I wasn't prepared to, whereas at least through college I was considering it, and then that turned into listening to other people and building upon that, and writing, you know, writing fiction and non-fiction. It forced me to confront things, it forced me to confront traumas, and it forced me to confront my attitude. But it also showed me that there's so much that I never believed possible might be. Like, it unearthed all these dormant traumas, all these dormant ideas, because I wasn't born depressed, I wasn't born sad, I did it to myself. And whilst I still am very much in that place, college showed me that, and studying English, literature, reading, showed me that it might not always be that way, or it might not always be that bad. Like, I think I'm going to struggle with things my whole life for different reasons, but I don't think it's always going to be that bad. Like, I think there is a way that it might improve. I just want to say I wrote some really good notes and I've just completely ignored them. Hyperreal is a confrontation. It's scary. There's no answer. It's almost like an incomplete piece of work, which, you know, and I know the more I work on it, the less it will be completed, if that makes sense. Like, it's got to be released now. It's just, I need to share it, and I need to get that work out there and get the thinking, the development out there, because it's the next natural step, no matter how infuriating it is. There's no clear way through. Like I say, there's no answer. I'm still trying to figure out what is going on, whilst accepting that I will never actually know. Like, those two completely contradict. Like, there's no answer, I'm looking for an answer, and I'm never going to know. Hyperreal it's written from a fairly mad headspace, if you can't tell, but also from a kind of newfound feeling of calm. Like, obviously I don't think I'm a calm person, I think we can all say that I'm not a calm person. I'm quite intense, but I feel calmer than I have before in my life. But I also feel more insane, I also feel more erratic. You know, it's coming from both places, and there is space for both of those feelings, both of those emotions in the collection, and I hope that comes through. I hope that you can see that I am just as calm as I am insane, which is maybe to say that I'm neither. I don't know. It's kind of, like I say, there's lots of questions, but through the madness there is a sense of clarity, and I hope that comes through. The idea of hyperreal, you know, and the finding a clarity in the madness, it's like that first beam of sun after heavy rain, you know, that comes through. Even if the rain stops, you don't register it until you see the first bit of sun, no matter how faint it is. It doesn't mean that everything is okay, it doesn't mean it's not going to rain again, it just means that things are different. It doesn't mean it's better or worse, it means it's different. And that's what I'm looking for. It's like, that's what I want now. I don't want better or worse, because I can't grasp that, but I can grasp different. I can get on board with different, and I can work with that and challenge it, overcome it, confront it, address it, whatever it needs, whatever this different requires. I'm here for it, and I can work through it, no matter how horrible, painful, long, ironic. It'll likely get worse at different points, but there'll be a way through, and you have to hold on to that that beam of sun. You have to hold on to that bit of hope no matter how fleeting and hopeless the hope is. You just have to go with it. That's really, really scary, and I still struggle with it. And don't talk to me when I'm in a bad mood, because I won't hear you say that to me. But something. I think this would be another video, but I did just want to say that I have struggled through writing Hyperreal with, like, recognising who I am. Like, I often, you know, I'll see a picture, or I'll see myself in the mirror, or I'll look at my hands. I don't recognise. I feel so detached from myself, or like I'm walking and I know I'm putting one foot in front of the other, but it's like I'm constantly detaching and reattaching myself to myself. It's a really kind of, I think I would need to work on this a lot more, but it's almost like my personality and my body are completely separate entities. But at times I can see how they can join, and my memories, they're closer and further apart at different times. But it always feels like we're parallel lines that we never meet, but we're in it together. I'm constantly having to like question this, and I'm so aware of it because I'm constantly questioning it and driving myself insane with it. But I think I needed to express that. You know, that is heavily influenced this collection. So at times when the poetry seems odd and weird, it's probably because it is, but also because, I don't know, I'm still figuring it out. I probably never will figure it out. But yeah, because I'm questioning everything about myself and existence and all of those lovely existential questions, it was obviously kind of going to happen in the poetry. It was going to be a part of it. And because I think I write best when I'm in my work and it's personal, you know, it's going to filter in, whether consciously or subconsciously. But I think you just needed this. I think this video was just to give that awareness and just to give you a bit of background of where those poems are coming from. Because I think if you were just coming into it without that, I don't know, you may read it differently. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end of the video. My apologies if it was upsetting or distressing at all. Not that it will mean anything, but my DMs are always open. Or you can get in touch with me through my email. I will leave lots of different links and resources, or links to resources that I can, in the description. I'm aware that these are kind of sensitive topics, and probably people try and skirt around them a bit more because they're so sensitive and because they're so loaded. I think I'm trying to bridge a gap between preserving what I can't talk about and discussing what I don't want to talk about, in terms of, like, I need to get out of my comfort zone and I need to confront certain things and I need to add to the conversation, like I've said. I need to put more of myself in my work, and I think I owe it to people who read my work and who have supported me. I think I owe you that much. I hope in time I can share more, be more honest, less cry. But I'm also trying to be as patient as I can with myself, figure things out, control my anger, be a normal functioning human, but I think that one's going to take some time. I just hope this gives you a better idea of the place that Hyperreal was written from, and the place that I am now, and where I'm going to go. I have plans for where I'm taking my poetry and where I'm taking my life, but who knows? I hope that this just gives you a little bit of an insight into where this has come from and where I am now, and that this is a some way useful addition to Hyperreal and my poetry as a whole, but just a some way kind of a little insight into my work. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go and try and cut this down into something that is kind of appropriate for the internet. Bye for now. Please go and check out Hyperreal. I'll leave some details, and I will again leave the link to the other Q&A where I answer more specifics about the collection.